Beneath all this beauty lurks a beast. An eruption equal to 1,000 nuclear bombs. Nature's ticking time bomb, Yellowstone, one of the most popular tourist attractions in North America.
An eruption like Yellowstone could trigger the end of civilization as we know it.
For over a century, tens of millions of visitors have marveled at Yellowstone's breathtaking scenery. It's America's first national park. But Yellowstone's beauty is only skin deep. What's threatening lies just beneath the surface. We get a glimpse of it several times a day from Old Faithful. This famous geyser shoots 32,000 liters of boiling water 18 stories straight up. A tourist attraction, but far from benign. Yellowstone National Park is recognized as one of the largest volcanic systems on Earth. A supervolcano, one that erupts about every 600,000 years. The last major eruption was 640,000 years ago. So, is it overdue? There have been disturbing signals. Possible warnings of another eruption that have scientists concerned. Zone 1, closest to Yellowstone, would be suffocated by close to 2 meters of ash. It's home to 70,000 people.
There's a time once it erupts, ash cloud reaches these communities in a matter of minutes. You don't have the ability to get in your car and outrun the ash cloud like you see in the movies.
I'm sorry, the road is closed from here any further east. This is as far east as you can go.
Bausch's calm demeanor belies the terrifying predictions.
I don't see that there would be much survivability in Zone 1 if you weren't able to evacuate before the event.
Travel 100 kilometers further to Zone 2. Another 400,000 people are at risk for more than a meter of ash. There would be severe health problems, like those suffered by victims of Mount Merapi in Indonesia. The deadly ash would spread quickly. By Zone 3, more than 1 million people would be exposed before even reaching a major city. In Zone 4, Salt Lake City would be crushed by 0.5 meter of ash, twice the amount needed to collapse a building. Nothing short of a concrete bunker would support the weight. In Zone 5, cities as far north as Calgary and Regina would be covered by up to 15 centimeters of ash. Even that amount can cause some roofs to collapse. Unable to go outside or travel, people would be trapped in vulnerable buildings. By the time the ash covers Zone 6, it would blanket an area from San Francisco to New York, from Dallas to Toronto, dumping up to 1 centimeter, irritating lungs and eyes. In total, at least 200 million people would be affected by the ash fallout directly from the volcano. If there is no warning and no evacuation, the human cost would be unimaginable. FEMA estimates the economic damages would total $3 trillion, more than all preceding American disasters combined. Yellowstone's supervolcano is home to the largest concentration of geysers, bubbling mud pots, and earthquakes in the world. It's an indication this volcano is very much alive. An eruption could be the largest natural disaster in recorded history. It could trigger a volcanic winter, kill millions of people, and make most of North America uninhabitable. Martin Stryker knows all too well how dangerous Yellowstone can be.
One of America's worst series of earthquakes in this century felt throughout the Northwest.
In 1959, Martin was 15 years old on a family camping trip near Yellowstone. Just before midnight, he was startled awake. His two younger brothers were reading comic books by flashlight.
And I said, what's going on? Is this a thunderstorm? And they said, yeah, we think so. And they just went back to what they were doing. But to me, it didn't feel right. So I got up and I went outside the tent and I looked right in front of me, and 10 feet away was our car, and on top of the car were 2 pine trees that had snapped off and were broken.
Martin's dad and his stepmom were sleeping in a tent nearby.
I saw that a boulder was sitting right on top of their tent, and the tent was totally covered by this boulder. I realized then that they'd been killed.
In Medicine River Canyon, 50 million tons of earth and rock, the top of an 8,000-foot mountain, thundered across a forest campground in one of the biggest landslides.
The landslide was the result of the quake measuring 7.5 on the Richter scale. It killed 28 people.
It shows the power of the initial quake because this rock had been jarred loose on the hillside, had run down the hill, jumped over the picnic table, and landed on top of their tent in like nothing flat. My instinct was to protect my brothers. And then when I took them outside and told them that Dad and Ethel had been killed, that was a heck of a shock. But I said, we can't stay around here. We have to get out of here. There was a lot of wind blowing. You could hear the trees snapping off like matchsticks around us. The dust in the air was really quite thick. It seemed like it was blowing up out of the fissures in the ground. We'd been to Old Faithful. We'd been to Yellowstone Lake. We'd seen bears. We'd seen bison. You just feel like, how did this happen? The next day, a sheriff and a ranger and a farmer came by, and they got a winch and they pulled the rocks back. And that was fairly traumatic to me.
The caldera, the crater from the last eruption, is oval-shaped, covered by lava and ash, smoothed over by glaciers. Forests now cover the scars.
Putting my mark in for a seismograph station and a GPS point.
But this pastoral image of Yellowstone doesn't fool geophysicist Bob Smith. He's been watching the volcano for his entire career.
This thing's been active for 17 million years. And as we see it today, it's very dynamic. When you drive to Yellowstone from anywhere, you drive uphill onto this high plateau, and the plateau is essentially the top of the hotspot. It includes the earthquakes. It includes the concepts of heat flow that's driving the geysers and hot springs, but it has its source deeper in the Earth's upper mantle.
The Earth is basically having hot flashes and hot spots. It's the way it conveniently cools off.
It's that mysterious heat source deep in the Earth that's fueling Yellowstone. North America is a series of tectonic plates moving at a speed of 2.5 centimeters per year in a southwesterly direction. As the plate system moves, cracks and fractures allow melted magma to make its way to the surface, creating the opportunity for an eruption. This plate movement has left a trail of volcanic eruptions in its wake, called a hotspot track. Volcanic eruptions along a stretch of 800 kilometers, a line of fire leading to Yellowstone. It became clear that it was the lake making a wave, undetectable to the eye, but picked up by the instruments. Water moving back and forth like water displaced in a bathtub. And it's not just the water making waves, the ground itself is on the move. Scientists discovered roughly a quarter of the caldera was rising right over the magma chamber. Every 90 minutes, Yellowstone's crown jewel, Old Faithful, goes off like clockwork. If only the rest of Yellowstone was this predictable.